Hi everyone, I'm Megan Patterson. I'm one of the student and family support specialists in the district at Brook Park Elementary. And it's my pleasure to introduce Emily Welka with Ohio ICAC. I'm not going to go into what ICAC is quite yet because she will give you a lot more information during the presentation.
Thank you so much. My name is Emily Welka. I'm the public outreach coordinator with the Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. So what we do as a task force is we identify, arrest, and prosecute individuals seeking to exploit children on the internet. So within our task force, we have our investigators who they'll go out on the warrants, they'll do the arresting. We have our canine, Diana. She's our electronic scent detection canine. So she smells a very specific glue that's used in hard drives, smartphones, tablets, cameras, you name it. She can smell it, and she helps us on search warrants, whether it's she's found like dime-sized cameras, she's found hard drives, so she's a big help to us. And then we also have our analysts, so I'll go over cyber tips later, but they're the ones who will go through our cyber tips, and then they assign the cases to our investigators. And then you have me, which is I do the outreach stuff. So I give presentations, I'll talk to kids about internet safety, I'll plan events for ICAC, so on and so forth. So a little bit more about our office. There are 61 ICAC task force across the country, but the one in Cuyahoga County is actually one of the largest ones. We tend to have the largest caseload out of anyone in the country. We have over 360 affiliates that work with us, so we'll help them. We work on the local, state, and federal level. So we help law enforcement and prosecutorial agencies with their internet crimes against children cases. We're also funded by the DOJ, the Office of Juvenile Justice. We work directly under the prosecutor's office, kind of just giving you a gist of where we fall in line. And we are, like I said, one of the busiest task force in the country. So it's, the workload is huge, but like as a task force, we're working to kind of manage things. So why were we created? Our task force was, ICAC in general was created in 1998. There was a surgence of kids on the internet. I remember when I was in high school, the only social media group was Facebook. And now when I ask kids, you know, does anyone here have a Facebook? I've been told it's for old people, so it kind of makes me feel a little sad, but it is what it is. So children and teenagers are on the internet all the time now. They use it for school, they use it with video games, they'll use it to connect with friends, family, like so on. You name it, it's there. Since kids and teenagers are now on the internet, child sex offenders no longer need to go out in public to find kids. They can just do it on the internet. So a big thing that we're seeing is Instagram. You can message people that you're not followers with, and that's how a lot of these offenders are contacting kids, just as an example. So we were created to kind of intervene in that. We're the law enforcement agency that's going to step in, arrest these offenders, and also try to keep kids safe online. So why should you guys be concerned with the internet? Like I said, it's a part of our everyday lives. Kids use it all the time. I know Apple now gives you like a screen, like how often are you on the screen every day? And it's just increasing daily for kids. So they're using it more than ever, and so you guys have to be the first line of defense for your kids. It's not enough to sit by and say, well, I didn't know. So I'm here kind of giving you tips and tricks on what to look for, what to watch out for, so on and so forth. And then, even though the internet has been around for probably the entirety of your kids' lives, it's super important to have open conversations about, you know, why the internet is considered unsafe, who on the internet wants to hurt your kids, and why what they post in the long run can have effects on their lives. So I show this slide in every presentation I've done so far. These are the 108 defendants from 2018 to 2021 in our undercover operations. So what we do is our investigators will hold these operations, and these are the offenders who have traveled either from within Ohio. We had a case recently where someone traveled from Kansas to Ohio to meet up with a minor for sex. So I show this slide to kind of give a little more context about like why the internet needs to be like talked about and why internet safety needs to be talked about. And also, while we have arrested over 100 offenders, and this has just been, 2018 to 2021, there are still countless others out there. There's an estimated about 500,000 online offenders every day online. So while we are working diligently, it's also important for you guys to step up and keep your kids safe. It's not enough for just us to come out and discuss internet safety. So parts of the internet to be concerned with, the main one is social media. It's definitely exploded since Facebook. I know MySpace was really big. I'm not too familiar with it. It was a little before my time, I'm not gonna lie, but MySpace was really big, and then Facebook, and now we have, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, so on and so forth. So since kids have such easy access to social media, that for us is our main concern. And because social media was made to be social, a lot of the filter system doesn't exist. So for example, I'm gonna pick on Instagram a lot just because I know it so well. You can, all you need is a name, a date of birth, and an email address. You can make all that up if you want to. So that's something that we stress with kids, and especially parents, is that these people can kind of go online, they can create a fake profile, they can use any internet picture offline, and they can talk to your kids. So that's why social media for us is such a large concern. There's, countless kids on it, and therefore offenders are gonna be on it as well. So this is kind of like a small, just snapshot of some of the apps that kids are on these days. Just going across, starting with the yellow, you got Snapchat, Kik, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, TikTok, Tinder, and so on. And why these are such a great concern for us, couple different reasons. The number one is the messaging capabilities. So Snapchat, not only can you take pictures and send photos and videos, but you can also message people. And these messages disappear after, I believe, 24 hours. Same thing with Kik. It's meant to be a messaging app. It was specifically created to be an anonymous messaging app, so you're connected with, anyone in the world, and you can message them. There's no age verification. You can only really see a username, but at the same time, you never know who's behind that username. Same thing with Instagrams. Messaging exists on that. Facebook Messenger, obviously, so on. The second biggest thing with these apps is that it allows you to send and receive media, so photos and videos. Snapchat is an issue for us, and we talk to kids about it because it is the primary platform that kids will use to send nude photos to each other. The app was designed to where it'll delete after a set number of seconds, and even like the Snapchat stories delete after 24 hours. As law enforcement, as our task force, that's where we see some of the most child exploitation occur, because these kids think that, it's only a couple seconds, it deletes, it's gone forever. It's not gone forever. Snapchat holds on to these photos in their database. You can screenshot it, you can screen record it. So, Snapchat is definitely one of the big ones I say to watch out for. And then the bottom ones, TikTok, Tinder, and YouTube. TikTok has a similar thing that you submit however long second videos. I know they're increasing the time on there, but we're seeing kids that will will post explicit content on there. So either they're taking their clothes off on TikTok and they're posting it, they're posting videos in their underwear, and then that stuff either ends up, circulating on adult websites. I've seen a couple TikTok videos that they're within the collections of online predators. So it's kind of with all of these apps is that it's the media content that kids are exploiting. So kind of following along with social media, friends and followers are another big thing. Anyone can follow and friend you on social media. There's certain things that you can do within your profiles to keep you safe, and I'm gonna go through that. So with these apps, since kids are kind of open to the idea of how many followers can I get, how many likes can I get, they're willing to kind of friend anybody. So it's important to have that conversation of, well, you should only really follow and friend people that you know in real life. Because if you don't know them in real life, there's no way to tell who they really are. Like the example I gave before, I could pose as a 14-year-old boy on Instagram. There's nothing that's gonna verify my age, my gender, any of that. So any information that your kids use to create social media accounts, offenders can use that same information and they can pose online as whoever they wanna be. So one of the things with social media are privacy settings. A good rule of thumb is to keep all of your accounts private, all of your kids' accounts private. I'm going to go through a couple different commonly used apps, talk about privacy settings, etc. It's a good idea to practice this because even if your child is practicing, internet safety to a T, if their accounts are public, it gives people the ability to view their accounts, view what they're posting. So it's just like an added layer of protection. So this first one is Instagram. This is under settings. As you can see, you can go under privacy. And then it's this little toggle at the top. It slides it to private. So unless you or your child go in and manually say, yes, this person can follow me, they won't be able to see any of your child's posts. They can see a profile picture and their bio if they have one, but that's as far as it goes. This one is Twitter. It's kind of the same idea. So under privacy, you can protect your tweets, so only your followers will be able to see what you're tweeting. And then lastly is Snapchat. Snapchat's a little different because it allows actually your followers to see where you are in the world. It's under geolocation. So say I'm friends with someone in Italy, I can go on Snapchat and I can see exactly where they are over there. There's nothing unless you do it manually, anyone in the world can see where you are in Snapchat. So what ghost mode is it basically takes you off the map. So if enabled, it will remove your geolocation. So no one else, even your followers, will be able to see it. So privacy with your kids. It's a little, I know as adults it's super straightforward for us to say, privacy has one meaning. It's not complicated. This is what it means. With kids, it can be a little trickier because there's this idea that, well, I wouldn't tell my teacher what I would tell my best friend. Both are considered privacy to the child, but they're a little different. So it's super important to discuss personal information and how that should never be online, and that's the main point with privacy. So anything like date of birth, email address, phone number, physical home address, those are personal information things that should never be online and need to be stressed with your kids. It's also important that with privacy to give specific context to things. I remember in high school we had the same internet safety presentation and we would just get, we would be told social media is bad, don't be on it, go read a book, go play outside, end of story. But we were never really given specific context to why it might be bad or why should we be worried. So with kids, it's super important to say there are people online that want to exploit you. And if you do this, it will put you in harm. But if you do this, it will keep you safe. It adds a little more context. It helps them kind of understand, why their behaviors matter in the long run and why it's important to be safe on the internet. So grooming is not a new topic of conversation in terms of online or in person. It's an emotional connection that a child predator will use with children to basically gain their trust, gain their affection for the purpose of sexual abuse, exploitation, or trafficking. Children Children are usually groomed online, but it can also occur in a face-to-face setting. So it can happen with a stranger, family member, friend, etc. What we're seeing online most recently is romantically charged language. So there'll be messages on Instagram where it'll be phrases such as, I think you're really pretty, we should connect on Instagram, we should be friends. And then the conversation will escalate from there to, what's your phone number, I want to text you. And then it just keeps escalating. So being really clear with your kids that if you don't know the person online, number one red flag. Another red flag would be if they're sending you these messages, it's obviously that you don't know them, they don't know you, you need to block and report them. Some example of grooming behavior, online predators will send a lot of messages to kids. They'll kind of isolate them, tell them they're special, use that kind of romantically charged language. They'll try to send gifts, they'll try to get personal information from your children. They'll send sexually explicit messages that might be disguised as compliments, but they're obviously sexual in nature. With the overall goal of manipulating children to either send them nude photos or videos. So preventing grooming as parents, the biggest thing is to talk with your child. Talk with your child about, who are they talking to online? What does their online activity look like, etc. Because if you can have that conversation, then it leads to, okay, why is this a bad idea to talk to this person? Why is what they're saying harmful to you? The second one is behavior. So just be aware of any abnormal changes in your child's behavior. Like I said, grooming tends to be an isolatory behavior with offenders, so their goal is to basically like separate your child from their support systems. So a big thing is behavior with that. Thirdly, I said gifts. Offenders will often send gifts. And then lastly is to stress that your child should never meet up with strangers that they meet online. I know recently with like dating apps are really big. I think Tinder, Grindr is one, etc. The biggest thing is these apps want to get their users to meet offline. And if you're a minor, you can think this is a great idea. It's important that you stress that this is never a good idea. Even as an adult, it's never a good idea to meet with someone that you met online because you never know who they are. Like I said before, you can never verify anything, so that conversation is super important to have. Okay, gaming and internet safety is kind of a newer topic that we're trying to stress, and that's because, you know, as video games have kind of progressed from, you know, where they started to where they are now, multiplayer is a big one, and it's almost always exclusively online. So you're connecting with, you know, people all over the country. I remember when I lived at home, my brother, he's a big gamer, and I would ask him like, oh, who you're playing with? And he would sometimes say like, oh, kids from school. But then he would say, oh, you know, my friend from Iowa. And it's like, he always said the word friend, and it's like, well, are they really your friend? Do you know who they are? It's like, no, it's just someone I game with. So with video games, we stress that, yes, there is a component that you are playing with online strangers, but, you know, if they try to talk to you outside of the game, if they try to contact you in any other way, that's where it needs to stop. So we're seeing with apps such as like Discord and Twitch, which are like, they're streaming platforms for video games, more or less. People will say like, hey, I really enjoyed playing with you. What's your phone number? We should text. That's how it escalates. So yes, video games are kind of like the future, as kids say, because, you know, you can get scholarships to school from video games. It's becoming bigger and bigger as the years go by. But the same principles apply that you would use for social media to video games. So stressing that, yes, you are playing with strangers, but at the end of the day, they're still strangers. We don't talk to them outside of the game. That's where it ends. Okay, so I talk about live streaming because we've had a couple instances where children have been live streaming, doing whatever. We had a case where a girl was on live stream, she was taking off her clothes, and she gave out her home address. And how live stream works is once it's out there, anyone can see it. Anyone that's tuned into the live stream can see it. You can delete it afterwards, but once someone sees it, like, that's pretty much it. So gaming apps, like I said, Discord, Twitch, Instagram has a live stream ability, so does Facebook and YouTube. So like I said, there's no editing the video, and it can be taken down afterwards, but once someone sees, like, it displays it immediately, so people can see it as it's happening. Since live streaming is so prominent on, you know, apps all over the place, it's important to discuss that it relates to the same way as social media. So personal information should never be given out on live stream. You should never post explicit or be performing explicit content while on live stream because, you know, everyone can see it. All of your followers can see it. If you're not on private, then anyone in the world can see it. So I talk about sexting a lot with basically all of the presentations I do. These are just some statistics of sexting. It is in every high school. It's in most middle schools. It doesn't matter, you know, the size of the school, where it is, rural versus urban. Like, I went to a tiny Catholic school. Our graduating class, I think, was like 50 kids, and we had sexting cases. So just kind of an example of, like, it can happen anywhere. So these are reports from 2018. The numbers are relatively the same. I checked. So these are just standout stats from a study that was done based on gender, age, how kids felt about nude photos. So we don't really know exactly why kids send nudes. We can guess. Most of the time it's because popularity. They think that by sending them, they gain affection from whoever's sending them, etc. But at the end of the day, like, we don't know exactly why kids send nudes. So as parents, it's super important to have the conversation of, once you put something out there, you can never take it away. Like, the internet is a black hole, basically. So if you post it, it has the ability to affect you 5-10 years from now. So having that conversation with your kids of saying, well, say you post a nude at 12 years old, it's going to affect you when you try to get into college. You may not get that scholarship. You may not get admittance. Or you're applying for that dream job of yours 20 years down the line. They dig through your social media. They dig through deleted files. They'll find it. Sexting prevention, like I said, it's more popular than ever before. You know, the pandemic happened. Kids were isolated. This drove sexting through the roof. It's important to have the conversation that more than just saying sexting is wrong. So like I said before, you know, we all got the sexting talk, at least I did in high school, of, you know, it's wrong, don't do it. Adding context and saying, like, your consequences will last for much longer than you think, it kind of is a wake-up call for kids. And also, sexting is currently prosecuted under Ohio's child pornography laws. If you are, or if your children are caught sexting, they are given a juvenile case in the system. They have to take a diversion class, which is basically just a course on why sexting is wrong, all of, you know, the bad part of sexting, why it's illegal, etc. So kind of shifting gears back to social media, parental controls are great. I highly recommend using them. These are just some tips as to how to work with your kids to either set up parental controls, discussing parental controls, etc. Having an active role in your kids' social media lives is very important. So either setting it up with them, knowing their passwords and usernames, following them on that social media. It's taking a proactive role in seeing what they post, having access to what they post, and then having the conversation of what is good to post, what isn't good to post, etc. So I have a couple apps on the next slide that I've seen parents have mentioned before. We've talked about them a little bit in the task force, so I'll put that up for a little bit. But parental control apps do exist. They're kind of getting a little more complex as kids are on the internet a little more. They allow parents to set filters. There's time limits for some of them, a couple other options. So this is just like a general list of parental control apps. They're very similar. Some of them have different aspects. Like I know Life360 can track how fast you're going if you're in a car. Norton Family and Kaspersky Safe Kids, they set time limits. So after a certain time, the app will lock the phone, basically, for however long you set. So these are just like the most common apps on both iOS and Android. So rules and boundaries. Establishing boundaries with your children is imperative to keeping them safe online. Tons of parents will say, okay, it's 9 o'clock, you need to plug in your phone, it stays downstairs, you guys go to bed, it's done for the night. Setting time limits, who they interact with, is a great way to keep them safe online. And then what apps and sites they can use. You know, it's super important to be aware of what is on your kids' phones because, you know, not being aware and taking a passive role in your kids' safety, it's putting them in danger. So understanding, you know, Instagram does this, this, and this. Facebook does this. Twitter does this. It's super important because then it allows you to kind of get ahead of the game saying like, okay, this is the content my kid might be viewing. This is what they might be putting out there, etc. So documenting an incident, we get probably like 200 cyber tips a day, and this is basically companies reporting child exploitation online. We get them from Google, Dropbox, basically any online kind of social media governing platform. So documenting an incident or documenting child exploitation online, the first thing is to take screenshots of the incident. You don't want to delete anything, and you don't want to retaliate or respond. And also, you don't want to conduct your own investigation. All evidence should be turned over to law enforcement. It's super important that you know which law enforcement you turned it over to, make a detailed account of what you saw, what happened. And then if you do this on NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, it links that law enforcement with the cyber tip so they can continue the investigation. So this is the website for NCMEC, and then the cyber tip line is up here. What they do is they handle the original cyber tips. So like I said before, these companies submit basically flags saying, hey, we have child sexual abuse material on our website. We need you guys to investigate. It originally goes to NECMEC, and then it comes to us. And our analysts look through them, assign them to an investigator. The case moves forward. So this is the website and the tip line. We post a lot of really important information regarding internet safety. These are our platforms. And then our website, we update it with, we kind of like move through different topics. Right now we're focusing on cyberbullying because that's going to be October's message. But we'll post stuff geared towards parents, geared towards kids, basically covering all our bases in regards to internet safety. So these are some resources that we recommend to parents. I'll leave it up for a hot minute so you guys can take pictures if you want. But the first one is NECMEC, second one is also NECMEC. And then the following ones are websites that kind of teach online safety, make it a little more digestible for kids at a younger age. They give tips for parents, just kind of a good references to have. I have one more slide with resources. So. And the last one also posts relevant studies related to internet safety. So they just put out one related to sexting. It talks about age, gender, sexual orientation, how it varies between different topics, etc. Do you guys have any questions for me? Anything I didn't cover? Anything you'd like to know more about? I know they can't direct message, but they can leave comments on videos. And I know on live stream, the comments will kind of like scroll through the video as it's going. So while messaging doesn't exist, like instant commenting does, if that makes sense. I know with the laptop it's a little difficult because at schools they tend to have a VPN where these sites aren't able to be accessed, but at home it's a little different. So I know with websites it's a little trickier. You have to do something with like your router to set up a VPN. Once that's set up, then it allows you to block certain websites and certain apps. But I know like just the laptop itself, you can't really like put in parental measures, if that makes sense. I think it's going through the settings is probably the best way to do it because I'm not sure. I don't believe with school laptops you can download your own parental controls because they are technically like the school's property. So I would say going through the settings, or if you have the ability to set up something at like on your home router as a filter system, that would be the best way to do that. Yeah. Okay, it's probably a good idea. That actually brings up a valid point. We're seeing these newer cases called sextortion cases where online predators will pose as kids online. They'll either just go online and look for kids, but they will, pose as children. They'll start talking to other kids saying, I'm your age, I'm this gender, and then they ask for nude photos, and then from there they say, okay, well, unless you send me money, I'm going to send these photos to your family, I'm going to put them online, I'm going to basically distribute them. So we're seeing it with Snapchat a lot because of the ability for these messages to disappear. There's the screenshot option. And Snapchat's difficult for law enforcement because of that. I'm not saying it's impossible by any means, but it's just a newer wave of cases that we're seeing with internet predators specifically. Does anyone else have any other questions? Yes. So with the cyber tips, within each tip is a documented case of child pornography online. So we get them, we'll get the platform, we'll get the images specifically that were associated with the account. And then from there, our analysts deal with it, and then it goes to investigators. I would say, I can't give a definitive number, but I would say it moves pretty quickly from when we get the tip to when investigators are conducting search warrants, going out, making the arrest. I would say maybe like a month, maybe a little over a month. It depends. No. It depends in each case, whether it is out of state that we're getting this, if the offender traveled to Ohio, committed the abuse, and then left. Those are some different factors that can affect it, but I would say it definitely doesn't sit for like 6 to 9 months. It tends to move pretty quickly. Yes, we will. If there are these messages on the phone, we'll often confiscate them as evidence. Or if there are nude photos and videos on the phone, we will confiscate them as evidence. Yes. So. My guess would be that they probably did a forensic exam, went through the messages, tried to identify where that person was, probably not who they were, but just like a location, what city they were in, and then from there conducting a profile on like figuring out who this person was. Are there any other questions? I can answer investigative stuff, forensic stuff, internet safety stuff. Yes. Mhm. Yeah, we've seen cases as young as 7, 8 years old through 17. So unfortunately, there isn't like a minimum age that these offenders, say, hey, this is where I draw the line. So really, any kid can be a target. It's okay. Yeah, you just have to be, because I know there are like thousands of games out there. They have messaging abilities, even words with friends. Like you can message people, and it's a harmless, for the most part, app. Yeah, I would say just being really aware of the different factors of the app, whether it involves messaging, if there's like a video component to it. Yeah, just being really kind of, because I could give a 2-hour presentation on every app that has led to exploitation. So, yeah. Sorry, I wish I could be like, these are all the apps that are bad. But yeah, it's just kind of being aware of like the components of each app, what's on your kid's phone, etc. Cool. All right, if you guys don't have any other questions, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much. If you have anything else that you think of later that I didn't talk about, feel free to call us. My email is on the next page if anybody wants it. So feel free to reach out if you have any other questions, concerns, anything at all. But thank you guys so much. Have a great night.